The pandemic was hard on everybody. From a business perspective, however, few were hit harder than our tourism and hospitality operators. People weren't going out, events were canceled, and as things came roaring back earlier this year, a large number of workers had left the sector. On this week's Eastern Ontario Business Journal podcast, we're going to explore how tourism recovery is looking in Eastern Ontario today and what's in store for 2023. Welcome to the Season 1 finale of the Eastern Ontario Business Journal podcast. I'm your host, Phil Gaudreau. If you like this show, make sure to like and subscribe. Today, we're chatting with a few special guests about tourism recovery in this most unusual of years and what they see for 2023. Emilie Williams is with Tulips and Maple Catering. Hi, Emilie.
Hi, Phil.
Claudia Van Wijk owns Owl Rafting in lovely Foresters Falls. Hello, Claudia.
Hello, hello.
And finally, we've got Ryan Gilbertson, Tourism Development Officer for the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association. Welcome, Ryan.
Hi, Phil.
I want to start today by looking at the haul from 2022. So Emilie and Claudia, and maybe we'll start with Emilie. Can you tell us a bit about some of your highlights from 2022 as you started to see events and weddings come back? Was it as busy as you were expecting?
Absolutely, Phil. Tulips and Maple saw a record number of inquiries coming in, especially during the summer season. We had last-minute events planned, annual events coming back, as well as quite a few clients looking to rebook things.
Okay. And what about you, Claudia? How were things on the water?
The water was the place to be, but already in 2020 and 2021. So it was wonderful to finally be allowed to open when we normally do the May long weekend. That's the first time in 3 years because 2019, the Ottawa River had a flood. We weren't allowed to even put a foot in the water until the end of June. So 2022 was kind of felt back to normal.
Mm-hmm. I want to pick up on something you had mentioned, Emilie. Tons of business, plenty busy, but in your industry in particular, we've seen some significant cost increases from wage increases for servers, minimum wage hikes, food and gas costs. So when you're talking to brides and event organizers, are they pretty sensitized to the costs at this point, or are we still seeing some sticker shock?
So we're really transparent with our costs at Tulips and Maple, and we do try to work with all our clients' budgets. So but thankfully, clients are coming to us pretty sensitized, but just because of their personal dealings they're seeing the costs in the grocery stores, at the gas stations. And we're happy to note that most of our clients do come to us thinking that they're not as sticker shocked as you might think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, Claudia, I'm sure an important part of your recovery and going back to, I guess, you're really going to be comparing against 2018 numbers because, like you said, 2019 was a bit down. But did you see American tourist traffic start to recover pre-pandemic, or is that still lagging?
That's a long lag still. They were not coming back. We almost had more internationals from Europe than we did Americans. So I'm not sure if it was fuel or if it was just them still discovering their own country. I'm not sure. But it was very, very few from the U.S.
Yeah. Well, that staycation tax credit, I'm wondering, do you think that helped with some of the Ontario foot traffic, or did that really not make much of a difference for you?
For us, I think it's such a small part of our experience that it's just a spit into the finances. It's not a big incentive. I think there Quebec did a much better job in, if you book through a tour operator, you would get 25% of your vacation if it was 2 nights and two activities. So it got people out to try new things. The staycation is very complicated, and I don't think it's really doing much. At least we haven't seen it. And we've had no interest with people now that they're putting their taxes together. No requests.
Very interesting. Okay. Ryan, I want to turn things over to you for a moment. What were some of the major topics you were hearing from business owners up in your area that they felt would help them along in their recovery?
So the first one, the biggest one I would say would be the labor shortages. As we know, the pandemic caused a mass exodus on frontline employees, with mainly focusing on the tourism hospitality sector was hit the hardest. Additionally, in the Ottawa Valley, most of our tourism operators are seasonal. So searching for employees to fill 6 to 8 month long contracts can be quite challenging, especially when you factor in the lockdowns into that. The housing crisis also presented a huge shortage of affordable housing in the rental properties, while some of the larger tourism operators offer limited staff accommodation. Most don't, and they rely on the local housing inventory to meet those workforce needs.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some of those challenges we're still seeing in 2023, but maybe we'll leave next year aside for just a moment. Emilie and Claudia, were there some of the same challenges you'd say in your businesses? Any that you'd add to that? Maybe we'll start with you, Emilie.
Yeah, I'd say our biggest one would be the labor, as Ryan mentioned. We are still experiencing that as well. Our more experienced team members, moving on, and definitely looking to find that skilled labor again.
Claudia?
Yeah, the same. It's the very first time we're in an outdoor industry, which normally the young are flocking to. They want to live outdoors and be outside, and it's the very first time we just couldn't fill our openings, and we offer accommodation to our staff. So it's an all-in-one. You come and live outdoors. You have your own cabin in the woods. Where else can someone in their 20s have their own house for the whole summer within a resort? It's sad and it's nerve-wracking. One of the big issues too is the foreign worker permits. We have in the past relied on skilled labor, and for rafting, you need whitewater expertise. That doesn't, you can't learn that at college. That's years of paddling first before you become a professional raft guide. And we have had a wonderful international group for the 42 years that we, or actually 35, but that has changed. Even before the pandemic, that window was closed to us. So now it's even harder.
Very interesting. Ryan, I want to come back to something I'd ask Claudia about, because I'd like your perspective on it as well, which is that staycation tax credit. And was that something you were hearing about from business owners in your area, Claudia aside, obviously, as something that was really helpful to them, or not really a factor this year?
We did hear a little bit back from some of our business owners in the area, and we found that the Ontario staycation tax credit was both a welcome incentive for both the industry and the consumer. From an industry perspective, it provided an opportunity to focus on the domestic market while waiting for international visitation to rebound. During the height of the pandemic, the resident population became the tourism industry's lifeline, so maintaining that close connection with our local market was imperative for the industry. There was also more efforts by local, regional, and provincial tourism destination marketing organizations and agencies to work together collaboratively, with the tourism industry to collectively market Ontario and its residents.
Okay. And before we leave 2022 behind and start to think about new year and new opportunities, Claudia and Emilie, I want to come back to you. Are any changes you made to your business during the pandemic that you've kept going forward? Maybe we'll start with Claudia this time.
Yeah, as I mentioned, outdoor pursuits were very popular, and we saw a lot of families. That has always been our market, but now it grew to more people learning about us. And we had a family rafting trip where nobody paddled. The guide did all the work, and we transitioned that into running a different channel, which is less adventurous whitewater, but it is still whitewater and you still body surf, but everyone paddles. And that we tested in 2020, and now it is our most popular package, is the low intensity, our soft adventure. So that's one to stay. And then the other one is people want to stay longer. So we've added glamping tents, huge interest, to wake up in the morning overlooking the water in your own tent and roughing it, but not really. It's kind of luxury, glamorous camping.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that doesn't sound fun at all. Emilie, anything Tulips and Maple changed during the pandemic that you're keeping?
Yeah, absolutely. Tulips Maple created unique menus during the pandemic, especially with individual packaging of items, especially for our hospital and healthcare clients who wanted something a bit safer, or something delivered, sometimes to their guests' houses instead of mass gatherings. The types of clients we have have changed. We did a lot more contracts with the military. And hospitals. The addition of how we communicate with our clients virtually, or how inquiries are taken in. We even hosted a virtual wedding tasting where we delivered the food to the client, and then we all met up on Zoom and talked about the food. It was we just changed our processes, and some of that's going forward, especially with the individual packaging of food. I think healthcare is just switching over to that sort of way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can remember talking to a few clients for a Ottawa Business Journal publication, The Giving Guide, there's a plug, about their fundraising dinners and how they had to change those from the, pizza in the middle of the table or something like that to those individual packages. So very interesting. Looking ahead to 2023. So Claudia, something we heard through the pandemic was that seasonal tourism businesses were kind of getting left out of the recovery. You didn't lose money in every month of the calendar year. You weren't getting those government grants. Or have we seen any resolution to that at this point? Do you think that's something that's going to get resolved down the line?
I was part of many task forces during the early years or early season of the pandemic. So in 2020, Renfrew County, Attractions Ontario, Destination Ontario's task force, and the one that delivered to all of us very well was the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. And without that, I know anyone in our partnership, colleagues, wouldn't have been able to open. But the big one was infrastructure to support, because to be competitive on the other side of the pandemic, you had to make changes. And they actually listened. So Ontario Tourism did make it possible for non-for-profit to reach up to 50%, a much higher amount. But for small business like ours, there was a potential of getting $100,000 towards infrastructure. Owl Rafting was approved for $50,000. And that was huge, because when we went to building the glamping tents I mentioned earlier, everything was twice as expensive. The wood, the tents, the bedding. So by having 50% supported made it possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now you've got a new revenue stream that's going to help you recover, right?
That is the hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting the word out, and marketing is still something that is ongoing. And I must say there, Destination Ontario had their wings clipped for far too long. They had to stay indoors in their own home offices. They weren't allowed out until the middle of last summer. And this is, 2 years of no marketing. I think that's very hard on the tourism industry right there.
Mm-hmm. Are there other recovery programs or initiatives that you're looking at for the year ahead, or at this point, is it focusing mostly on getting people down the rapids?
Marketing is always at the top end. I think coming out of the pandemic, we realized the work of working together with other partners. In fact, Tulips and Maple, we had lots of discussions in 2019, and then the pandemic happened. So by meeting Emilie here, this is awesome, because we can work together. And these are the ways to grow. And that is, I think, something very positive going forward.
I got to say, telling a marketer that marketing is the top of the list, Always a good way to make a fan. So, Emilie, I know there's still a lot of uncertainty out there, but how full is your calendar for 2023 at this point?
Well, we're definitely seeing a big resurgence of weddings being booked in the summer, the spring, even into the fall. Many brides and grooms coming to us, booking, their weddings that they postponed, as well as just everyone coming in and trying to, maybe they didn't postpone and they were just waiting. And we're definitely busy in the summer and spring seasons already with lots of weddings. So we're really excited about that.
Okay. Any big highlight events, things that are, outside of weddings, maybe getting into some of the corporate clients, events that they had to cancel over, the last couple of years that have been rescheduled? Any come to mind?
Yeah, no, we're definitely a lot of government agencies are starting to book their larger events, 400, 500, 600 people events at the museums here in Ottawa. So that's one of our great clients that venues that we work with, and they're definitely being booked. So, and conferences into January actually starting, we're doing a few conferences for on a smaller scale, but.
Seen a few events locally where it's, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary that happened in 2020, and getting caught up on some of those belated anniversary galas and that kind of thing. Any big concerns as you look to the schedule for next year, Claudia and Emilie particularly?
I'll say it's labor is the biggest concern, and the rising costs. We've had to pass that on, like Emilie was saying, to our clients, and hopefully we will present it in a way that people want to save to make that one holiday. I think for us the biggest positive is we're offering a wonderful outdoor experience that is both accommodation, meals, and an amazing, exciting adventure that brings memories.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. We're definitely enjoying this resurgence of the outdoor tent wedding and events that are happening. We're very happy to accommodate that change, but definitely we, as Claudia mentioned, we look to we're looking for creative and unique ways to build up our workforce again and train them as well as the costs of food, the supply of food, supply of vehicles, the cost of running them and fueling them as well.
Mm-hmm. Got to say, it's nice to have a bit of pressure off the pumps this week, but we'll have to see how long that lasts. Ryan, any recommendations or content your organization's putting in place to help tourism operators in the Valley prep for that, what's likely to be a busy year ahead?
So for next year, we plan on hosting a lot of workshops to bring business owners together in terms of focusing on different marketing techniques or networking events as well. We recently hosted one with the Culinary Tourism Alliance, and we did sort of a speed dating setup with them, which brought business owners one-on-one to discuss how they could potentially work together in the future. So just really focusing on working together as a whole collaboratively and developing those relationships amongst everyone in the industry so we can all get through this together and utilize our resources and help as many people as possible.
Awesome. It sounds like it'll hopefully be a bright year ahead. Wishing you all best of success in 2023. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Emilie Williams of Tulips and Maple Catering, Claudia Van Wyck of Owl Rafting, and Ryan Gilbertson from the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association for the great discussion today. If you got a favorite tourism spot you'll be heading to in Eastern Ontario next year, leave a comment. Let us know what it is. If it's not in Eastern Ontario, don't write it. Our highly complex system of comment moderation will filter it out. Only Eastern Ontario tourism recommendations on this show. Now then, the EOBJ Podcast is made possible by these sponsors. The City of Cornwall, the County of Leeds-Grenville, the County of Renfrew. We'll look forward to chatting about business issues in Eastern Ontario again in the new year. In the meantime, for important business news affecting Eastern Ontario, stay tuned to obj.ca. I'm Phil Gaudreau. Thanks for joining us.